Hello and welcome to this mini concert. My name is Father Jeffrey. As a Bandura player, it could be called Yefrem the Bandurist. This little concert I call Bila Sorochka, or the White Shirt. And it's a tribute to Ukraine's representative at Eurovision, Katerina Pavlenko, and Go A. They placed 5th this year in Eurovision. Listening to her music, thought of a few sources or a few similarities, which it should be, because her ethno-pop or ethno and techno music. And so I want to share a few of those with you. This is the Bandura, Ukraine's national instrument. And from some of the things that I've been learning over the years, I could hear the themes in her songs. So I'll give you a few examples. One starts with a word that they use in describing their music, shum, which would be ruckus or noise. And there's a Ukrainian folk song. When I, very first time I ever brought the Bandura home to Wishart, where I was growing up, my dad was saying, play me this song, Ishumit Ihudit. That was his favorite Ukrainian folk song. And so to hear that word from a Ukrainian folk song in the way that Go A describes their music, I thought, gee, that means that I'm kind of in that element in a general way from that background from which she's drawing her inspiration. And this song, as it turns out, of course, very popular certain times at certain places in history of Ukrainians in Canada. And so I'd like to play a few bars of it for you now. Ishumit Ihudit. So because of that word shum that they use, helping me think of my dad, think of my childhood, and even especially when first playing the Bandura. In some of their songs, you could hear, well, first of all, there's a style of singing that we're familiar with in Saskatchewan. Some of the choirs, in Saskatoon, there was a time when this style of singing is very popular, Bile Holos, and from Ukraine as well. In 2006, 2007, when I was associated at Mohila Institute, St. Mohila Institute in Saskatoon with their immersion program, the choirs there, when they were the students, they'd be in their late teens. They were really interested in this style of singing, and that's what Katerina is making popular on a world stage now. So there's that element that I see reflected in her music. And a third element, there's a kolomeka kind of style that's people are familiar with, and she uses that as well. And there's a song, Verkhoveno, that I play on the Bandura, and I'll play a few lines of it, a few bars from the song. One of our daughters, Olivia, a few years ago when she was younger, I would play music for our girls, for our daughters, and they would dance and they would make up their own songs. And one time she said to me, "Well, that's my favorite song." And so to be able to hear that motif of that kolomeka in this very popular Ukrainian music now, reviving in a lot of ways Ukrainian music and Ukrainian language in Ukraine through its popular culture and music on that stage of the Eurovision, for which she, if I had mentioned already, that they placed 5th this year for 2021. So here's a little bit of Verkhoveno. And finally, what I learned from an interview about Katerina Pavlenko and her group, Go A, that they would go and sing in eastern Ukraine for Ukrainian soldiers. And that tells you a lot too about their values and what's important for them, and to be able to perform and raise the morale of Ukrainian soldiers. And some of her interviews explaining about what it meant for them to go. And in one particular interview, she's starting to cry, and she's saying, we didn't quite know what to sing or what to play for them. And one of the young soldiers gave them a recommendation: sing Ukrainian folk songs, because that'll remind the soldiers of songs that they learned as children from their own babas, from their grandparents and their mothers and babas. And she started crying as she's explaining this, because it really was something personal for her, because she had a really good relationship with one of her babas, one of her grandmothers, and growing up, and then now for her to be able to sing Ukrainian folk songs, and for others as well, especially these young men and women that are risking their lives defending Ukraine. And there is one particular Ukrainian song that I've learned, and it's exactly on that theme. A man is saying to the musician, play me songs, and I'll give you what you want, money or wine, whatever you want. And especially, play for me the songs that my mother used to sing for me when I was a child. So here's a few verses of Zahrai Tetseha Nestare. So, play, O gypsy, play. Zahrai Tetseha Nestare, Takoyak Hadayu, Shedam venateda, if so sholish mayu. Zahrai nistare, takoyak hadayu. Shedam venateda, im sholish mayu. Zahrai starejo твою пісню, що то колись співала. Stara